Boom. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to try out the new computer and go live, so thanks for joining us. With this time today, what we're going to do is just go and take a look at Facebook. No, I'm kidding. Bitcoin's price. We don't really care anything about Facebook. It's not, it's not April Fool's either. But let's see how this does. Okay, boom. So that's Bitcoin right there. This is Bitcoin on the daily chart. Very colorful chart here. Currently using the area chart. I'd like to start off back at our beginning of the thesis. We believe we're in a reaccumulation zone, part of a secondary growth of this original market cycle back way back here. Okay, so here is our previous Bitcoin market cycle. Again, you can see the run from around 3,000 up to 17,000, back down to 3,000, up to 13,000, back down to 3,000, and then up to 60,000. Accumulation takes time, and largely patience as an investor is important for these reasons. There are a bunch of fruit trees I planted about 10 years ago that are now for the first time offering and bearing their first fruits. They are delicious, but it takes time. And now fruit and Bitcoin are not maybe the greatest example of an analogy. One is significantly faster at scaling, the other doesn't have the same kind of boundaries as a fruit tree necessarily. The patience is important, especially when dealing with technology. I'm very excited about the play to earn sector and the potential that's going on here, but ultimately I think what's important is this new kind of growth of monetary cycles that we may be witnessing. The idea that really sold me on Bitcoin first was, okay, sovereign, free choice, money. This makes a lot of sense, but ownership of identity is equally as valuable, or multiple property or reputation is also very important. So we're going to skip that. We're going to focus on just Bitcoin because those other conversations yet don't really have an answer, but the technology that sits in the center of this is a potential answer for a bunch of those conversations, depending on how it's used, utilized, and then distributed, which you would want to be as generally decentralized as possible. So Bitcoin being our kind of North Star to this general broad thesis, if we add a little bit more color back to this chart, one of the reasons why we are still bullish, why we've been bullish throughout this, is the high likelihood, in my opinion, that this is a horizontal reaccumulation trading range, very similar to what we saw in the S&P 500. And then again, based off this 3 peaks and a domed house idea that we had gone over multiple times before. So we are right in this pocket that we suspected we would see a bit of fill, just because there's such a big gap here. Now there's a massive amount of support here in this particular pocket. Now again, if we kind of illuminate a little bit more about what's going on here between these two market cycles and positions. Back between 2017 and 2020 here, this market cycle, you can see the horizontal trading range is drawn in by the green at the bottom and the yellow at the top. The top was one of the major tops, and the green here was one of the major bottom cells, which was effectively the start of the pandemic, and this signifies a massive amount of fear coming into the market. Oh, sorry, there we go. There, now it's all on screen. Okay, now the top blowout peak here is effectively a different. I assume I look at them as separate parts of the market cycle. We were more interested in this being the primary selling. If you're actually doing your Wyckoff homework, you know what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, this was the trading range that we were following back through the beginning of this bull market. And again, what's interesting here is the fill again on the right hand side, the amount of volume that's sold on been bought and sold throughout that period, and it's a significant amount. You can see here it's a significant amount higher than this $30,000 mark. But as we start to get closer and closer to the $30,000 mark, what we have to remember is that the majority of people who were into crypto, like let's say prior March 2020, were not that many institutions. You have some of the world's biggest investors that have shown up here somewhat late to the playground, almost like getting in at an initial public offering. So they're going to be very careful about how they accumulate, and they're going to try to take as much time to gain the asset that they want if they're good at this game. The reason being is because largely, as we started this thesis, patience is important for a few reasons. You can increase conviction over time, allowing yourself to get the best price without having to worry about, did I get a bottom or a top within a market cycle? And the fact that we have so many big purchases of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars from weaker hands likely to much stronger hands things like the Luna Foundation, Michael Saylor's thesis, Tesla. These are extraordinarily important buys within this region, I think, that keep us afloat above this. Now, this is just this market psychology, because largely, if you're one of the asset holders that are of that much bigger institutional grade size, you're not as prone to shorter term market fluctuations. Now, that's not always the case. Obviously, if you're a hedge fund and you're or any type of fund really, and you are over leveraged or overexposed, effectively, you could get wiped out of the market. But with assets, as long as you're not overexposed and you're not using derivatives or leverage, your market position can stay regardless of the volatility, and that's really important. So, because these bigger players have that staying power, I believe that this is, again, the footprint of the bottom of this accumulation cycle. There are a bunch of reasons to believe that that's the case, but ultimately, what we're seeing now, this fill between the pocket of 47,000 and 38,000, to me is super important. I think once we fill that pocket and this little bit gets chewed up, we clear into $58,000 pretty quickly. And I think we're at the final kind of stages of that now. Now, again, there are always reasons to believe that something cataclysmic could happen, and we could easily have a spring down to somewhere like $20,000 before coming up. But if this were the case, what you have to remember is, in context, when things become fearful, they don't last for very long. You'll be very lucky if you can, right? Let's go back. Here we are to the major trading range that we are so excited about in 2020, effectively. Here's the top, and here's your spring. This spring was such a significant amount of buy and sell pressure here, and such a limited price spread, effectively. This was what the bottom looks like. It is extraordinarily cataclysmic style moments. Oh my God, the world's going in lockdown. International flights have shut down. People can't see their loved ones. They're dying. It's really scary for most people. And because of that, this is where you see the most irrational format of accumulation. But look how long this lasted. This didn't last very long before you were already right back at where you were. By the time we were back at the previous highs, it only took 156 days. Patience. 180 days is not long. It takes 18 months to grow a pineapple. 180 days is not that long. Right? You can be patient throughout these volatile changes, unless you are in an over-leveraged position and you're at risk of blowing up. So ultimately, your risk profile should be high, but as long as you're positioned never to blow up, well, that's probably the most important downside to take into account. Don't blow your shit up. So here, even if we had a quick rapid fire dip down to 20 grand, it would be so short-lived. It would be incredibly short-lived, and something could happen. You could see some type of cataclysmic event that forced humans to become extraordinarily irrational on the open market about the assets that they held, and then the big players would do the same thing that they always do. They take advantage of the crisis by accumulating the assets at a depressed price because they have a bunch more money than the average person who runs out and buys toilet paper at the beginning of all this. So, where does that leave us? Even though there is a room for an extreme potential, that extreme potential would have to be something dramatic. And although we can't predict the future, we can definitely say that those things happen, so we can't write it out of the book. But barring that cataclysmic event, which again, there's every reason to potentially believe that could be the case, this to me looks like a strong rising accumulation cylinder, and I bet you we're going to be at $58,000 probably by close to August. May take a little bit, may actually happen faster too. And I'll go over why here in just a minute. One of the things we constantly do is check back in with Glassnode's data. Oh, I am not logged in here. So actually, in the meantime, while I log back in, remember to subscribe to the Arcane Bear YouTube channel if you like this content. We don't normally do Saturday shows, but I just wanted to make sure everything is working properly. Okay, so we can see a massive dip here, back on our screen share, of the Bitcoin's supply on the open market. So we've actually, since the other weekend, we've dropped another 0.2% in the supply. So again, throughout this range, we have our price staying relatively stable, and we have look at the inverted nature of the supply and the price at this moment too, right? Very, very important to note that we've resumed our distinct downward trend in the amount of supply on the open market, and the price is staying relatively stable. This is fantastic. The big players love this, and this is why I think this is so bullish. You're seeing massive bullish divergence between the price and the amount of supply on the exchanges. again, there's a huge chunk of locked up supply in Satoshi's wallet that could any point come onto the market. And there may be a few other places where there are a percent of supply hidden somewhere that could come rolling out into the market. But ultimately, we see such a massive absorption of the supply that is currently there, unless, again, something cataclysmic happens or again, like if Satoshi were to move his wallet, a percent come on. But effectively, we've already seen this happen. Back in April, we saw an entire percent of supply come onto the market and then get chewed up with less than 60 days. This is extraordinarily bullish, in my opinion. So there's so many confounding factors here. Again, barring that irrational fear zone, which can be instigated, and once instigated, a lot of this becomes irrelevant because people are irrational, and irrational behavior has no need to do anything with the current reality that we're existing in. So something to ponder. Nonetheless, looks like everything's going smooth on the stream, so I'm glad about that. Glad everything's going, it's going faster too. One of the problems we were having is we weren't able to load this anymore. I forgot that the computer was so old. That studio computer was kicking on 5 years. S&P 500 obviously closed. Considering how much supply is coming to the market for the S&P, though, it did get absorbed quite quickly. I don't know who's on the other buying end of that. This will be really interesting to see what happens with the S&P 500 over the next few weeks as well. But ultimately, I think we're going to see a real shift in narrative around trust. In centralization of many things, I would hope it's a conversation we need to be having. Anyways, I guess everything's looking good. So that's all I really want to do. I just wanted to quick test that out. Look at Bitcoin. We still look like we're right at the bottom of this accumulation pocket here. Pooh. There's a few other confounding factors. Again, we don't really like too often using so many colorful aspects of the chart. But here on the 6 hour, this is the 300. We're just below the 314 day. We closed just below 2. Now I'm not looking for exact. These moving averages are lagging indicators to me. I'm just looking for pockets, and actually that pocket becomes more clear here when we're on the 6 hour change as well. So this area, this kind of 3 prod area that we're filling now, is very important. I suspect, just again because of the relationship between the 6 hour 314 and the center of this VPVR bar. So I expect we'll fill here, we'll jump back above, and then we'll be well on our way to 58,000. But again, this is a pretty critical moment for that potential dip down to $20,000, because we can always factor in something that could scare people enough to do that. So let's not take that out of the cards yet. If you were to see a dip below and the inability to close above 39,000, we're coming down real fast. Obviously a possibility again here, because we're trying to allude to the idea that something could happen that would change so dramatically the internal narrative of what's happening today that fear could push that much new supply onto the market. It could be just a market-wide thing too. Again, if Satoshi were to move and to sell drop all that Bitcoin onto the open market too. So it would be noticeable. Did you hear of something, the new Galleria? Yeah, we're big fans of Miri. We got a podcast lined up with them here shortly as well. We like this platform game build. We chatted with the founder of Com to Us, the CTX platform as well, who built Summoners. Oh God, I'm so bad with game names. Nonetheless, we like this idea where there's an on-ramp for game developers and the crypto enthusiasts to find an easy kind of format to collaborate together. There are different prongs of a technology of a conversation, and you want people collaborating together who've been thinking about something for a long period of time. And a lot of people have been thinking about games for a long period of time, and there's a whole other group of people over here that have been thinking about digital ownership for a long time. So merging those two together make a lot of sense. And the platform build, they have an amazing team as well, all self-start entrepreneurs, some of the big names behind Ubisoft, creator of Civilization, I think as well. So we're going to have them on for a podcast soon. So we're fans. We like the idea, and we think they're going to do great. But again, our stature in venture capital is high risk, high reward. A lot of this stuff could also totally fail. That's why we try to make an aggregate of a thematic investment. Let's look at different ideas within the same theme and kind of bet on the whole sector within that theme effectively. So yeah, keep your eye on that. The podcast should be coming in the next 2 weeks, probably after I get back from the FTX event in the Bahamas, and then we're on for that one. So Gabriel says, I saw somewhere how the first floor of the domed house should always be at the level of the 3 peaks. What's your take on this? Well, I don't know about that, but what I do know and remember is that point 28 always returns back down to point 10, and we've done that pretty much here. So point 10 was at $33,000, and point 28 was at $34,000. So we've repeated that cycle here between point 10 and point 28. Now, again, the important part is understanding that these are reversal patterns. So it first appears, it's called a bearish reversal pattern. It means that if people believe it's bearish and then it reverses super fucking hard. And we've seen it happen a bunch in the NASDAQ. We've seen it happen in the S&P 500. Actually, you can do a lot of research. You can find out. They share a bunch here. This was the July 26, 1893. So there you go, 1893, and then again in 1910 to 1912, October 1946 to 1948, September 1964 to 1966. These are bearish reversal patterns. People are usually very bearish, and then they turn around like fucking fireworks. So keep an eye on that. Anyways, we're going to leave. I guess everything works, so that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you guys for joining us today, allowing us to check the new computer. That's all we really wanted to do today. We will see you again on Monday with a normal market update. Oh, and we've got some fun stuff coming up too, so I'll keep you posted on that. I think we've got a podcast with Nyan Heroes folks as well coming. I'm so excited about what all these cool people are building. Anyways, we'll share all those links on Come Here Monday as well. You can also go to www.arcanebear.com, and if you're interested in some of our research, you can find that there as well, typing it up at the top of your browser here. Oh, this is that was an incredibly slow load from Brave right there. Here we go. Let's see. We don't have Miria up here yet in our research list. It'll be up here in the next few days. You'll be able to see it. Anyways, keep it real, ladies and gentlemen. Be patient. And we'll see you on the next episode.